try to have something for everyone. So we do get a lot of families, and I get a lot of feedback afterwards. Sometimes it's, I'm so happy that I could bring my kid to a place where they felt at home, because maybe they're into something, they're different, and they finally have a place where they can go and they can see other people who are into different things. And that makes me like almost emotional, because I'm glad. Like, that's the whole point, is for people to come and have a place where they feel it's fine. Like, they feel normal. They can come here and they can discover, their new favorite artist, their new, favorite vendor.
Welcome to another episode of Death Science Podcast, where we explore new perspectives on life, death, dying, and the dead. Now, please like, share, and subscribe to support. You can find the audio on all major podcast platforms, and you can find the video on YouTube at www.catacomb.tv. Learn more about the show at deathscience.org. Now, welcome to episode number 3. Today's guest is Michelle Cozzaglio, the co-owner and organizer of the Oddities and Curiosities Expo. We'll be talking about oddities, curiosities, dark artists, as well as must-know vendors, as well as expos around the United States, also travel tips for around the United States, gardening ideas, and so much more. But before we get started, I want to talk about CatacombCulture.com. This is where I sell my sculptures. My sculptures being functional home decor I make out of hyper-realistic human bone sculptures that I also make. From human bone lamps to food-safe skull bowls and goblets, great for eating and drinking out of, I make a lot of memento mori-friendly pieces that serve as reminders that our lifespans are limited, so let's make the best out of the time we have left. Explore my bone gallery at CatacombCulture.com. Also, restinggrounds.org will guide you in exploring alternative post-life care for your deceased body. Listen, your deceased body has the potential to literally save lives, advance multiple fields of science, and so much more. To learn more, go to restinggrounds.org. Now let's meet Michelle and explore new perspectives on life, death, dying, and the dead. On today's episode, we are here with Michelle Cozzaglio, and she is the owner, co-founder of Oddities and Curiosities Expo. Welcome to the Catacombs, Michelle. How are you today?
Hi, thanks for having me. I am great. How are you guys?
Awesome. Good. Just hanging in there, making the best out of the isolation time as I can. How about you?
Yeah, it's staying busy. Try not to think about the impending doom, but other than that, I'm doing great.
So let's start with, tell us a little bit more about the Oddities and Curiosities Expo.
Yeah, so the Oddities and Curiosities Expo is an event that travels around the country featuring vendors, dealers, artists with all things weird. We feature local artists, local vendors, and then we have traveling vendors that come with us from all over the country.
Awesome. So what can people expect if they were to attend the Oddities and Curiosities Expo?
Well, all kinds of stuff, really. I mean, we really focus on having something weird for everyone. So, we really get a large demographic that comes out because they hear our name, Oddities and Curiosities Expo, and they think, oh, I wonder, what I'll see there. It piques their interest. So, when you come in, you can see all kinds of different dealers and vendors with things ranging from, dark art, taxidermy, skulls, bones, antiques, collectibles, really, like I said, all over the map of all things weird, even just, Halloween-inspired items. I really think it's important to have a little bit of everything. So, and then with that, we like to keep people around, hanging out, making new friends, meeting old friends, and all of that. So we have sideshow performers on stage all day, taxidermy classes, live human suspension, so some other interactive things as well.
Awesome. What are some? Oh, so you mentioned that you. Well, I know that you tour all over the United States. What kind of cities? What kind of venues do you typically vend at?
Well, so this past year, so 2020, we have gone to a lot of convention centers, And we choose the cities really just off of social media. And when we first started, we're like, where should we go? You know, we're from Oklahoma, so it's like a state that's really boring, and that's kind of how it all started. Is like, you know, something cool should happen here. Let's do this. And then, you know, we started focusing on other cities that stuff like this isn't really prominent. You know, it's there's not a lot of fun or unique things to do there. So, you know, then we went to Kansas City and like, you know, Denver, which Denver, Colorado is a big city, but it's great. But, you know, it grew from there. And now it's really hard to believe that we started in little kind of like expo centers, and now we're in like big, really nice convention centers, which the amenities that come with that is really great. And I think it's good to pass on to the vendors and give them more for, you know, what we're getting.
So it sounds like it started with this this sense of alienation and isolation, that like there wasn't anything really, you didn't really feel connected with your area, the public events that were happening in your local area. So that kind of brought up this drive to gather your people, so to speak, and gather everything you vibe with. That's really cool how it grew.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, my husband and I have been doing kind of like unique and different events since 2013. So, you know, we're really involved in the music community here. So, you know, we'll have like a record convention or like a little flea market involving music and like punk and hardcore and metal and stuff like that. And, you know, as an oddities collector myself, throughout that whole time, I'm like, oh, what if we had like, you know, event that was just focusing on like oddities or just strange things, which I thought was going to be like way smaller than all the other stuff I did. It was like me and my like 20 friends with all of our weird stuff. And it was at the first one here in Tulsa where we live was at like an American Legion, like really small. And yeah, it ended up growing into what it is now, which is awesome.
So you started at an American Legion, like out of all.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's kind of ironic too, because the American Legion is like so heavy. It's such a heavy crystallized representation of this culture and like the pride of America and the pride of mainstream culture, and then you bring up like the total opposite, everything that's repressed and everything that's like not in the mainstream, right into that that place. That's really cool. So
yeah, the owners of the American Legion, we had done like a kind of like a punk rock flea market type event there before, and I tried all these other little places around town, and they were all like, yeah, we're not interested in having something like that at our venue. And I'm like, fine, whatever. And then I go here, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll try it out. And they had a bar there in the back that was like super cheap drinks, like $2 shots of Jameson and all of this. And we had our event, and they made like their sales day, like their biggest sales day ever at the bar. And they're like, oh, we really like you guys. You should come back.
Nice.
so that's I think that's how they kind of were like, sure, come on.
So it's mutually beneficial. That's a unique marriage of different polarities.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Now let's paint the picture here, because just from doing the expos myself and vending there, it's just it's unbelievable. The types of vendors, the things that everyone sells there and collects. And tell me a little bit more about the performers and the classes that you offer that might be overlooked.
Yeah, so our entertainment booker, I've told her I really love classic sideshow. So all of the performers at all of our shows, they're different in every city we go to, but they all specialize in classic sideshow stunts. So they're all swallowing swords, walking on glass, human pincushion. It's great. It's like all the fun stuff that people, the people that come to our shows are like, never seen something like this before, And I love that part of it, is being able to support these like independent sideshow artists and give them a place to do this where they can actually have a large crowd. And, I hear all the time after the shows that people get, more follows after their performances and tons of tags and, getting booked for other larger events. And I love that too. And then we have the live human suspension as well, which that team comes with us really since we started our first big year traveling around the country. and they're great. I would never do it, but people love it, and so they're always have their own little section and crowd over there of people, getting pierced or suspended or getting tattooed, depending on the state and what they allow. And then the classes, they change each year. And this year we have a jackalope workshop. So, it's a 30-person class, and it's 4 hours long, and people can come and, articulate a jackalope. And it's pretty simple as far as like a beginner class. But if you can come and you pay the fee and you leave with a mounted jackalope, it's pretty awesome for someone who's interested in taxidermy.
Are there any performers or anything that you're maybe looking for or that you wish you had on board?
It's hard to say. I'm so open to everything. Like I said, the classic stuff is really what I focus on having at the shows. But, we've had magic, which I love having magic. And it's pretty rare that we get a magician applying. And so I'm like, I would like some more magic.
So you mentioned each state is a little different than one another. Just from vending around and just seeing what people say that they can't sell, like each state has different laws, especially Louisiana, because I always have my eye on real human remains and all that stuff at the expos. And in Louisiana, you cannot even possess, you cannot own, you cannot have human remains. Completely illegal. Whereas other states, sure, whatever you want, have it, whatever. But maybe share with us some observations that you've noticed from that vary from state to state.
Yeah, like you said, Louisiana, they are very strict on human remains. Every time we actually have like the Fish and Wildlife people come to that show, and I think it's because for so long people still tried to deal like human skulls and human remains, and you can't. So, but most every other state we go to is pretty cool about almost everything. California is really strict on taxidermy. You can't even have some of the like really basics like deer or a few other like really typical like more popular, I guess you could say, taxidermy mounts there. I'm trying to think of some other states that have really weird laws. We haven't been to Virginia yet, but Virginia does as well.
I was just gonna say.
I'm actually still doing a bunch of research on exactly what everyone can have there, because I do the research before every event, and well in advance. Like, do I want to come here? Can I have anything? Can anyone have anything here? And Virginia is interesting. There's some like, you could call them loopholes, but I'm talking with the like Fish and Wildlife there, and they're like, all right, you can have this type of whatever deer, or you can't have this one, or it's interesting to find out everywhere's preferences.
Have you ever encountered any like problems with like legal standards, maybe something that you weren't aware of, or any problems like that arise at the expos?
No, luckily, no.
Nice.
We do, we have people coming out, though, randomly at the shows. Like, sometimes we'll go 5 shows in a row and no one comes from the state. But when they do, it's like, I'm pretty forward about, like, whenever you apply, you have to select, like, everything I have is legal in the state that we're going to. And though it's up to the vendors, it's still something before every show starts. Me and my crew are walking around, I have a list, and I'm making sure that I don't see anything that you're not supposed to have. And, a couple of times we have come across some vendors who, especially mainly traveling with us, it's hard to keep up with all these states and what they want. So, they're like, oh, you can't have this in this state. I'm like, okay, sorry, put it up. But luckily there's never been any, like, legal, actual, like, tickets given at a show or something like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're really careful in being very clear about the guidelines and making sure that the liability and responsibility is on the people who come to the show and not your organization.
Yeah. I want to like look out for everyone. So of course I want to, if I can catch it before and they just didn't know, then I would like to do that. I wouldn't want anyone to get in trouble, but also,
Right.
we don't want to get in trouble. And it's a serious thing. And I think most people who have done our shows for a while know that, I'm treating them well, and so I want them to do the same and follow the guidelines because it's pretty simple to, just be cool.
Are you aware of any I guess you would call them like political movements in the field of law, like relating to what you're doing, maybe things that are strange or like forbidden by mainstream culture, or the current system of government at play? Are you familiar with any like movements to change the laws going into the mainstream and clearing that space to move?
No, not really. I'm always keeping my eye out just to see, if anything's changing, but I mean, not really, no, luckily. I mean, there hasn't really been any pushback, especially in any cities that we're going to. No one's, like, not wanting us to return because of what we had at the show or something, luckily. Kind of different, but we did have a venue confirm us and then look into what we were more, and then they're like, oh, we don't want this. We're Christian-owned.
Oh.
I was like, all right, I think it's best we don't come anyway. So.
Michelle, do you have any tips as to how one can research different states, like where to begin looking if, say, bull taxidermy is illegal in Iowa, or like if human skulls are illegal to possess in Florida? Like where do you begin researching such questions, like deep questions?
Yeah. So there's a website that I use, and I think a lot of the other vendors use as well, who really deal in, who travel and kind of need to look at this. And man, I think it's called the Green Wolf, like greenwolf.com, something like that. But it is super, it has so much information on it. You can choose federal guidelines, and you can choose per state. So it's easy, like, oh, what do they allow in, I don't know, Tennessee? And you can go there and you can see everything that's allowed, everything that's not allowed. And it's very, informational. I use that a lot, along with just, the actual state websites. It's kind of a pain, but, you can go through and you can navigate to the correct department and find all the information. But I definitely spend a lot of time doing that stuff, when choosing a new city. It's great returning to cities, so I'm like, I already know. But these new states, it takes a while to get it, and I try to pass it on with everyone. But sometimes it's good to just do your own homework, cover yourself. So.
So you mentioned you once booked a venue, and then they were like, oh, actually, we don't want you anymore. They kind of rejected you. As far as these different communities in different cities, what have you noticed? Has there been a lot of support? Has there been like deep subcultures of oddity collectors and just the curious individuals? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about what you learned and what you experienced there.
Yeah, well, I've learned a lot from the time we started, and then, it's nice to go to a new city and see how people react. And a lot of times, there's kind of the section of people that, with the feedback afterwards, that, it's not their thing. They're probably not going to come back. They thought it was weird or gross or whatever. And then there's the majority who just loved it because they've never been able to go to something like this. All the only way they can have access to these types of artists or vendors is through the internet. So, I mean, we get a lot of positive feedback when we leave a city, and that's from the venue, so the more so the city side of it, and then also the attendee side of it. And I don't know, it's crazy because every single city is different. The crowds are different. I mean, I'm sure sometimes they're very pleasant and everyone's happy, and then sometimes maybe not. It depends, and I don't know. I'm still learning, so it's kind of a hard question. I don't know. I learn every single show more and something else to do better next time. So.
Yeah, it's always a fun experience when I'm set up at my booth, and just families show up, right? Because it's family friendly,
Yeah.
so families show up, and I love watching the kids because they have one or of two reactions. Some of the kids are completely petrified and just in shock, and I'm like, oh my goodness, and then the other kids are just really excited. They're just so happy to actually like see my skulls, see like what you could do
Yeah.
with bones, like articulate them and make them into all kinds of different functional home decor stuff. Yeah, it's just yeah, I've always had a lot of fun at your events for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what kind of family reactions have you seen around the event?
It kind of the same, it's a lot of, like I said, we try to have something for everyone. So we do get a lot of families, and I get a lot of feedback afterwards from, moms and stuff. And sometimes it's, I'm so happy that I could bring my kid to a place where they felt at home, because maybe they're into something, they're different, and they finally have a place where they can go and they can see other people who are into different things. And that makes me like almost emotional, because I'm like, I'm glad. Like, that's the whole point, is for people to come and have a place where they feel it's fine. Like, they feel normal, and they can come here and they can discover, their new favorite artist, or new, favorite vendor or something. But then, there's the people who are like, this is too scary. This should be 18 plus. I mean, I disagree. I think it should be all ages. I think everyone should be able to come. And it's like we always also say online in our posts and on our website, parental discretion is advised. If you think your child is going to be scared at seeing a human skull, then maybe the child should stay home. But otherwise, I welcome families. I mean, families are excited to go do something together, and if they can come to our event and have a good time, then that's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. I'll never forget. It was in, I believe, the last one I did. Oh, North Carolina, Charlotte. I was vending in Charlotte with you guys, and yeah, a bunch of people coming in, hanging out at the booth, and this one family comes in, and the daughter, she must have been, oh boy, must have been maybe like 6 or 7 years old, and is like, when I grow up, I want to be a mortician. I'm like, yeah. And her mom was all supportive, and mom was like pointing out like, oh, this is the teeth, this is like the eye sockets. And I was just encouraging. I'm like, yeah, pick it up, check it out, feel it, look at all the details and stuff. Yeah, and it truly is a great place for families to come and explore like an alternative culture for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. See, stuff like that makes me so happy. And it's like, there are so many kids, or just like younger, teenagers even, that aren't even aware that there's stuff like this out there. They see it on the internet, but it's like people travel really long ways sometimes to come to our show. And it's great to hear the positive feedback, like people coming and feeling at home, and like getting to talk with vendors, and then like, I'm going to follow them now, and then staying in touch, and then coming back the next year and buying from them again. It's so awesome.
So, are there any things that you do not allow for sale at the expos?
Yeah, as of this year, we don't allow the sale of bats at all. So any like taxidermy bats, any like mounted bats, nothing like that. And I made that decision at the end of last year, because I'm a huge bat lover, and it's like bats are awesome creatures. They're they're awesome, and everybody loves the framed bat or whatever. And at the very beginning of our shows, there wasn't that many in at the booth, and so that was a few years ago. And as time has gone on, I noticed more and more. It seems like every single person had framed bats or something, and I'm like, there's no way that this is being sourced sustainably at all. So I just had to make that decision. It's like, it's hard, because it's only gotten worse and worse, the whole like sustainable side of getting bats, and like Indonesia and China, and like I just rather stay away from from having them at the show. And it's hard, because it's already, sometimes there are the people that you have to convince, like, no, I work really hard to make sure that everything in the show is sustainably sourced. no one is killing the animal and, doing their own taxidermy on it and bringing it to the show to sell. Like, that's not allowed. And I've declined applications for people who are hunters and stuff like that, because I don't mind. I don't care what anyone does, but to me, I want the show to be focused on like sustainably sourced goods. So that's the only thing right now. And, as time progresses, we'll just keep an eye on, how things are going. It's like things change and things like become more popular and then, they go away. So I'm pretty passionate about like the sustainable side of things and animals in general. So.
Yeah, I saw the one vendor, Forgotten Boneyard, 3D prints his bat skeletons. I'm like, oh my God, such a good idea.
Yeah, man, him is amazing. He, I said that, and he was like, I've already kind of been gearing towards like phasing out bats, and so it was awesome because some people, they just started making creative ways. How am I going to replace the bats I was selling? And yeah, the 3D print, they're great. And he started doing some other cool like monster things. I don't know if you saw them, but they're really cool too. I think he was actually selling some of these to vendors as well for them to do their own kind of creations with the bats too. So
Oh, yeah.
I like that idea. I like it. I'm like, this gives everyone more time to think of something new, and everyone needs to always be thinking of something new in their booth, because you don't want to come back to the same city with the same thing and then wonder why, I didn't sell anything this year. So.
Right. So tell us how COVID-19 has affected the expo. Because right now it's, I know you guys had to cancel a bunch of March, April, May, and you're looking at canceling May, possibly some June dates. Tell us how, like, your perspective as a organizer of an expo that travels to the United States. What's your perspective on the virus?
Yeah, well, it's hard times right now for, people in this industry in general. We canceled everything in March, so that was 3 shows. It was going to be like a really busy March. And then we canceled April, and that was just one show, luckily, and then we took a little break, and we canceled May. The second show, I haven't announced it yet, but it's going to be canceled too, or rescheduled per se, luckily. And then June, it's hard to say. I would love if June was better, but I feel more confident about July, honestly. I feel like, we're all waiting for this peak to happen, and I've been looking online at the whole projected peaks and all that across the country, because it's not just where I live, it's where are we going to go? What are their peaks looking like? And so I don't know. I just don't know what it's going to look like for June. It's really scary because this is what my husband and I do. We also own a record store, but it's closed as well. So really, my life has completely stopped, and I feel useless almost, because I'm so used to like constantly having emails, like constantly busy, and I love that. I'm not complaining. I like to be busy, and I like to, be excited and have something to look forward to. Like, okay, this weekend we're going to Dallas. Next weekend we're going to Columbus. It's like, it's my life. I like to travel. I like to do this, and for it to completely stop is like, it's heartbreaking. It's life affecting. It's really scary not to know what's going to happen. And all of the vendors that do our shows, all the 4 shows so far that have been canceled, well, it will be 5, so 5 shows, they're all out of making money too. And so it's just really sad, and I hate to see the vendors and people that I care about, because I've just become friends with all these people that I see like every other weekend, and to see them struggling, and it sucks, and it's hard to know what will happen. So really all I've been doing to overcome it on my side is I've been sharing vendors on our social media, putting together blogs that have all of their websites and posting it, because if they can still make money and get by until we can get back to normal, then I think that's the most important thing.
Are you canceling the shows, the expos, because of regulations, or is it just like personal choice, not because you have to?
I mean, the cities aren't allowing them, so I guess technically I'm being forced to cancel them or reschedule them. But I mean, I would anyway. It's like the safety of everyone is obviously of the most important part of it. And with our show being so many traveling vendors, it's like I just don't think it wouldn't be a good idea. And I was telling Jeremy before we started, a city that we have coming up mid-May reached out today, and like, are you still good to go? And I'm like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, it seems too early. So I'm gonna move forward with rescheduling that one, just because I think it's in everyone's best interest. Our staff, our attendees, our vendors, the venue, the city. That we're not bringing hundreds of people from other states into their state, because we just don't know how this is going to turn out. So, sadly, I think it's a little of both, which is hard to make that decision. Like, as I desperately want to get back to shows and get back to normal life, we just got to think of everyone else, because everyone's in it together. So,
Yeah. I think that's like one of the big lessons that the whole world is really learning on a lot of levels right now, how intimately connected literally everyone on the planet is. I mean, yeah, like if one country goes down, if one supply chain goes down, it ripples out and affects everything. So I think now is a really good time for everyone to really appreciate the social connections and contacts and circles that we have, and like learn to really cherish them, because the saying goes, you don't really know what you got till it's gone. And so I feel like we're going through that now, and we'll make it out. But
yeah, we will. And I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot of things are going to change too once this is finally over. Like, I think that people are going to think about small business more, and they're going to realize how important that is to support small business. And yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But for now, you see a lot of everyone's good sides, coming out and helping each other, and just helping everybody get through it, because that's really all you can do.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you can do right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, back to what you said, going back to small local businesses, sustainable practices, and trading, and even bartering, and alternate forms of currency and exchange, I think is going to help a lot of people through this. Because, I mean, large supply chains are going down. So in my life, speaking personally, I've been focusing more on like, okay, well, what can I do to produce food or water or medicines for myself? What plants can I grow? What can I do to be more self-sustainable and not rely on like going to a big chain grocery store, or relying on, even shipping from online vendors, like bringing it back to the local. Like, that's something that we've lost, that our older generations and ancestors, for the most part, they were really self-sufficient. They had their own gardens, they had their own, medicines. They knew how to do all these things on their own. And I think we're going to learn it the hard way. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
So since you travel all over the United States, do you have any tips for travelers as to really finding good accommodations, or things that you've noticed and experienced along the way that you've learned?
Well, kind of hard to say, because when I travel, especially for the shows anyways, I have like a whole crew with us, and so I'm buying all of them hotel rooms, and it's like, a total pain. But for a lot of the vendors who travel, I know a lot of people do like Airbnbs and do like the typical, kind of fun stuff like that. But I mean, for me, I think the best thing about traveling is having like the credit cards that rack up your miles. And like, that is some good stuff, because a lot of times we'll get free hotel rooms or stuff like that. And for us, since we travel so frequently, it's a lifesaver sometimes. Like, oh, cool, I'm getting like 2 free hotel nights. That's, $500 or something.
Nice.
So I always like tell a bunch of vendors to do that, and I think a lot of people are like, that's a good idea. I should get one of those cards. But and then also flying, we fly to some shows too, and that having one of those like mile cards was like pretty great too. And then it's like whenever we do travel, I am all about the adventures once we get there, especially in states that I haven't been to before. So I'm like looking up all the cool, creepy stuff to do, and like Atlas Obscura, of course, is always a go-to. Like, all right, what's going on here in this state or this city? So I know it's hard. I think people are always into different things, so it's hard to know what they're interested in. And, maybe someone's interested in the science museum, but I'm interested in the cool old abandoned cemetery. So it's like, it just depends.
Yeah. So when you fly, do you ship your items or inventory freight, or do you just kind of try and shove it all in one suitcase and get it on the plane?
Well, so we actually have 2 box trucks that drive to all of our shows, and that's because we take all of our merchandise, which is sometimes anywhere from 20 to 30 boxes. And, we have like all of our banners and all of the kind of like production stuff. We own our stage. And actually this year we bought our own pipe and drape, which is all the things that people don't really think about going into a show, but all this kind of back end stuff where, renting the pipe and drape for every show, it adds up. It's a lot. So, we were like, we should buy our own. And that added a few more crew members. But now they set up everything in the room. So we get the room and it's completely empty. And our crew goes in there the day before and we set everything up. And then the vendors come and it's already like looks all nice. And there's like, the black pipe and drape and all of that. So we actually have a ton of stuff. So whenever we fly, I just bring my personal items, and then the trucks have all of the show related items. And then
Nice.
Yeah, it's grown into be quite the production.
Might be cool to decorate the box trucks, if you haven't done so already. I mean, the idea comes to mind like the Merry Pranksters back in the '60s, how they drove around the school bus decorated with flowers and tie-dye paintings, and then
right.
like something unique for what you're doing, just box trucks decorated with all the symbols, everything.
Well, it's actually heartbreaking, but we had one box truck last year, and then this year is when we ended up buying the pipe and drape. So now we have 2. And at the beginning, we're like, okay, we want to put something on the truck. Obviously, we're driving across the country, people might as well look at it and be like, oh, it's that. I'm gonna look it up on my phone.
Right.
So we go through all of this shit to get our schedule on the box truck on both sides. So 4, 2. Yeah. And we do that. We finally get it done this year because it took a while. And then we go to Albuquerque. 1 week after we got it all done, everything canceled and everything's changed. Every time I come to my office and I walk in, I look at those damn trucks and I'm like, oh, I'm so mad. It's all wrong now. So yeah, my husband and I laugh at that every time. We're like, yeah, remember when we spent like a whole week like every day because we did it ourselves. Because I'm like, we like to do things ourselves. So we like get this like cool like banner thing that you put all around it, and then now it's like all the wrong dates. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, how can we fix this and I have to do it over again? I'm like, I don't think there's any fixing it. It's too messed up now.
Well, is it like vinyl or is it like
it is
painted?
Yeah. So I mean, like, luckily, so we were like looking into wraps, but I'm like, I don't want to do that because like it can get damaged so easily. So we found this like really cool banner thing where you like install a banner on the outside of it, and then or like a banner holder thing, and then you print the banner, and we have like a really great banner connect. So we print these huge banners. Luckily, we can get a new banner printed, but like I already said that when we first canceled the first 2 shows. I'm like, oh, we have to get a new banner for the truck. I'm so glad we didn't because it just kept coming. So I'm like, maybe we'll just wait till we know we're good, and then maybe we'll print a new one.
Yeah, or like what would you consider just kind of like like cutting and peeling off like the dates, like the date section? Because well, I think I might have seen a photo of it on your Instagram where it's like, yeah, it's like Oddities and Curiosities Expo, and then all the dates like a little smaller down the bottom. Could you just like kind of cut, peel off, and then slap a new one back on, or is it just one big unit that has to go on at once?
It's one big thing. So I don't know. We might play around with it and see. If it was like, I don't know, like there's not even a December section on there because we never have shows in December. We always take December off because my husband and I always take like a 2 to 3 week trip somewhere. But that's not happening this year because now we have December dates. So
maybe like a QR code that people could just scan with their phone, and then it takes them
when
to
they're
like,
driving.
yeah, that's it. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, the QR code just takes them to like a website that's like dynamic, so you can like edit things as they go up. I don't know,
Yeah.
just
Say
ideas.
like it's useless right now. Just check our website.
Right.
Yeah.
So after traveling the United States, do you have like a top 5 favorite cities that you visited?
Yeah, it's I found some cities that I love that I had never been to and would have never thought that I would like. So Denver is like our home away from home. We have tons of friends there. We've been doing shows there forever. I say forever, so like 2013 or so. And we go there frequently anyway. So Denver was one of the first out of state city that we did with the show. And so that's always my number one favorite. I really, really like San Diego. It's like, not just because it's San Diego and it's a beautiful, city and state, but everyone there is so nice. And it was just great. So I love going there and looking at the beach and all that because I live in Oklahoma and it's not that pretty. I also totally fell in love with Charlotte. It's like a weird, like, different type of place, and everyone's just really nice. I think like the whole like people say like Southern hospitality, but it's like every time we go there, everyone treats us really great, and so I really like going back there. And then Portland. It was actually my first time in Portland when we were there last October, and I love that city too.
Yeah,
of course,
something
it's like so fun and so much vegan food. I'm like, cool. When I go to a place like sometimes like Indianapolis, I'm like, where am I going to eat? Like, there's no vegan food here.
Yeah. I was surprised about New Orleans. They have like 2 vegan places for being like a major city. I'm like, oh.
New Orleans is such a fun place to go. Like the show itself, like we talked about earlier, there are restrictions there of like what you can have, and so the show itself is one of our smaller shows across the country. And when people think like, oh my gosh, you're going to New Orleans, it's probably like the biggest one.
Yeah.
It's just not, because that stuff is more popular there. Like strange, unusual, like it's a great show, but it's different. It's not what people really think. But of course, I love going there because it's such a blast. And every time we go there, we take like 2 or 3 more days to like go to cemeteries and do all the weird voodoo stuff and like all the fun.
Yeah.
I always love to do it. And then somehow someone in the crew always wants to go to Bourbon Street, and I'm like, y'all know it's going to be a shit show. Why are we going here?
Yeah.
But
The cemetery, specifically in New Orleans. Oh, classic, amazing above ground cemeteries. So nice.
They're beautiful. Like, you just wander around for hours just looking at all the like architecture. It's great. I love it. It's just so hot there.
Oh my
like,
god. Oh jeez. Yeah, I went.
5,000% humidity right now.
It's nonstop. It's unbelievable. Completely unbelievable. I've been there. I was there once in September last year, 2019. Yeah, so and I was there in September, and yeah, It was so humid. So humid. And then I was there this past January and it was still humid. I'm driving down from Pennsylvania and I'm like, "Oh, how come my like windshield's like fogging up a little bit?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like I had my AC on inside or some sort of AC heat or something. I don't know. And then as soon as I opened the door, poof, it hit me. It was just the New Orleans humidity. I didn't expect it because it was snowing in Pennsylvania, and I get to New Orleans and humid. Wow, I got spoiled real quick. I'm like, oh my, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to the snow. Oh man. But yeah,
I never snow, so I like the snow.
Yeah. Well.
Me too.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy me a good snowfall, but just like driving around in the snow is not ideal.
Yeah, that's
And plus with my like my art studio, like where I do my sanding, dremeling, sawing, all that kind of like stuff that creates all kinds of dust and whatnot. That one is it's not, I guess it's not really too well insulated, so I have to like show up, get my heaters going, and then I could kind of like relax at the studio. So it's like the winter time is like, I have to like psych myself up to get to the studio to turn the heaters on and then get in the zone. But yeah, you mentioned Portland. Yeah, it was my first time there doing the Oddities Expo, and it was so much fun. Definitely one of my favorite cities throughout the United States, Portland.
Yeah, it was so fun, and it was so pretty whenever we went. Like, one morning I woke up super early because I was really off on the time, and I just like drove up to this, like, I don't even know what it was. It was like above the city, and it was all foggy, and all the leaves were super pretty. I'm like, this is great. I love going back there, and I'm excited. I'm gonna keep that show there every October because it's like such a good time to go. It was fun.
Yeah, it was wild. The weekend before, I was in Los Angeles for Comic-Con, and after I was vending there, then I'm like, okay, I'll drive up from California. And it was just like, as soon as you hit like north California, like above San Fran, like on the border, it just gets so woodland-y, you know, like you're driving through these like I don't want to say like canyons, but just these huge like you're going over mountaintops and you're winding down the hills. It was such a great drive. Yeah, definitely one of my faves. I just took I-5 straight up, and it was just nice to pull in like that into Portland. And one of the things I did while I was there, I did a handful of things. Like you mentioned, I checked out Atlas Obscura for good things to do. I went on a hike. I checked out the, have you seen the Witch's House? It's like it's a pretty simple hike. You just kind of walk down and it's like the Witch's House. It's pretty much just like an abandoned stone structure in the middle of the woods, but the hike is so nice. I don't know what kind of trees they had. I don't know that kind of stuff, but I just remember seeing there were these like leaves, probably like maple leaves or something, but they were like probably like twice the size of my head. They were huge. Yeah, huge. And here in Pennsylvania, you don't get leaves that big, so it was just like a lot of fun just seeing the difference. Oh, and the moss too. The moss that just grows up the tree trunks and stuff. It was just like those little details are great because like especially when I do photo shoots and stuff, like I really vibe with the location and start looking for little details like that. And so it's just like it's really interesting seeing the differences.
It's a beautiful place. I want to go back and spend more time in Oregon. Like I want to leave Portland. I want to go to like all over Oregon. And Deidre, my assistant, she is from Oregon, so she was actually up there for even longer after that to stay and like see family and all that. And all of her photos, I'm like, I want to go back, and you just need to show me Oregon.
Well, fun fact: if you hear anything about the sea lions cave, the sea lions are not there in the fall. They're only there in like the summer warm months because in October, that's when they go out and they fish and they hunt and they like try and get their blubber up, get fat
Oh,
for the
that's
winter.
sweet.
Because that was kind of like I took a detour to hit that just to check it out, see what's going on with the sea lions, and yeah, I get all the way down in the cave because like you have to buy a ticket, you have to walk down, take an elevator down into the cave, and there are no lions. I'm like, ah.
Like, okay.
I'm like, oh great. I'm like, well, it was
Yeah.
a nice cave, you know. You know, it looked pretty cozy.
Cool cave.
Yeah.
No sea lions, though.
Yeah. So there you go. Fun fact: don't expect to see sea lions in the fall.
Oh, that's good to know, because I would definitely be seeking out the sea lions and going to that.
Yeah. I
Be totally
wanted
bummed.
to bark at the sea lions. I want to bark. I want to be part of their culture there. But I missed the boat on that one. You mentioned you have a record store. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my husband and I, we collect records, and we have for years. We're just record collectors in general. And we actually opened up a like live music venue slash kind of record store, clothing store, back in 2015, I think. And since it was a live music venue, it was like all ages, like super DIY, and it lasted for a year because, kids like drinking and like getting on the roof and shit. Like it was chaos. So it was great, but the side of the store aspect, we really wanted to keep that. But when we got the space, it was how it was set up was, okay, this was like meant to be a live music venue, and then there was like a little storefront. So we ended up closing back in 2016, and then we've been selling online ever since then. So whenever the Oddities Expo started like really ramping up, we're like, we have all these records, all this inventory. We need like a big building for like a new office, and we found this place, and it's perfect. So we have all of our oddities, merch and storage and all of that in the back part of this building, and the front part was perfect for our store. So we opened it back up again in 2019, and it's called Boulevard Trash. And it's great. We focus on like punk and hardcore and metal, and we book like a lot of like shows locally in our city and stuff, and so that's what we do. It's really sad to be closed because we're the only store here in our area that specializes in like alternative culture music, basically. So I'm just trying to add a bunch of stuff online now,
And you're only closed during the pandemic, right? You're not closed permanently.
Yes.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, no. Luckily, that we won't run into that since we kind of double this building as like our offices and stuff like that. So luckily, we're good in that sense. So it's just a great little spot. We store our trucks here, and we have like an outdoor garage area for like building stuff. Like Tony built all of our like record shelves and all that. So yeah, it's been good. I'm really happy we're open again. And back when we first opened, there's no way we could have hired an employee or anything to run our store. But now we're gone all the time, so we have an employee and they work, and it's pretty great. We actually have an upstairs too, which we're transforming into an apartment. So if you've heard any like banging around, that's my husband up there like building a kitchenette. But one of our friends is going to be moving in there in a couple weeks, and so we've been busy doing that, and it's been nice to be like busy. But as soon as we're done with that, I'm like, what the hell am I going to do now? Yeah.
So what draws you into vinyl as opposed to say CDs or cassettes or MP3s? Like what does vinyl mean to you?
Like growing up into punk, it's like all of my favorite punk bands, like they would put out vinyl, and I just thought it was so cool. Like being younger, like I've been collecting records for like probably since I was 15 or 16, and same with Tony before we met. Like he had a big record collection as well, and it's just I think like it depends on like the subculture, but in punk and hardcore, it's like all we just like records never went away basically, and so it's just I've always been really interested in collecting these specific records or like, you know, and to me, I like originals, of course, like first pressings and stuff, but it doesn't even matter. I just like the idea of collecting them and having them. And we have thousands of records at home, and then our store has, you know, we'll buy people's collections, and I'm like, I'll just peek through this first and see what I want before putting it in the store. But I just think it's just the best way to listen to music. Like, it, to me, you know, some people prefer CDs, or I mean, I don't even know anymore. Does anyone listen to CDs anymore? I don't even know. I feel like probably just live, like, streaming or whatever, which of course I listen to Spotify and all that, but I mean, we have a record player at our store that we use, just sitting around listening to music, and then, you know, at home we have a record player too that we, you know, that's like the preferred way to listen to music in my life.
Yeah, even with the film industry, it's funny. I did a art exhibition in San Antonio recently. I just kind of shipped out. I want to display my dark art house films, and so I put them all on a DVD and sent it with a DVD player. And like even like that technology felt kind of like old and weird.
Yeah. It's like so quickly. It's like, okay, never mind. No one does that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of people, they'll kind of stumble upon our store and they're like, wow, people still listen to records? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's like making a comeback.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
I hear that all the time from people, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't keep up with it, really. It's just, this is what I like, so if you like it, cool, but if not, whatever. You know?
So you mentioned you also have like a music venue, right? Like you book bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we don't own a music venue any further, but we did. But we don't anymore, so we just book around town. You know, sadly, not right now. We've had a few shows cancel, but, you know, we just have so many friends from all over the world that are in bands, and Tony, he used to, like, tour in a band, like, for years and years before we met, or, you know, that's how we met, is him being in a traveling band. So we just know so many people, and so it's like, it's fun to be able to give them a place to play here in our state, which, you know, it's like, for punk and hardcore, it's Oklahoma, so you don't really think of it being like a mecca for punk, or, you know, but it's actually pretty good. It's like, we have a good, like, music scene here, and so it's fun. We get cool bands that come through, and we book them when we can, and, you know, a lot of times we'll book really cool bands that we're friends with and stuff, and then it's like, oh, well, we have a show in Ohio, so we're not actually going to be here, but so that part sucks.
Oh, so you kind of act as like a kind of like the ambassador for bands, where it's like, hey, we'll be coming through, say, Oklahoma, and you're like, oh, well, I know this venue, and then you kind of like book them at the venue?
Yeah, basically so. You know, and especially if they like prefer like an all ages show, you know, we have like a house here that does like all ages basement shows, which is cool and like super DIY. And I'm all about the like DIY. You know, I love that. I've never really been about like super like, I don't know, corporate big shows or concerts or whatever. But you know, I like the booking it in a basement and everyone's drinking vodka from their water bottle or whatever, but that's fun. And then you know, it's like, obviously as we've gotten older, it's easier to book at bars, but you know, it's really important to me anyway to be able to give kids the opportunity to go to shows, because when I was a kid, I don't know if I would be where I was if I didn't have the like accessibility to like live music at a house or something that I could actually go to, you know. Oh.
But what kind of plants are you growing?
Well, every year as far as like a vegetable garden, I always have like the basics, like broccoli and cauliflower and tomatoes and peppers, because then I, you know, gotta make salsa. You know, have like the herbs like basil and mint. Actually, mint is like, mint just like takes over. It takes over everything. Like, it's like my entire backyard is just mint, because one time I planted mint somewhere and it just like, so. But yeah, this year I think I'm gonna do all the basics, and then maybe like some squash, I think some cucumber. I make some pickles later. So yeah, so we have a pretty like large. We have a big backyard, and then we have like a whole sectioned off area that is the garden area that's away from all my dogs. So yeah, I'm gonna try to come up with some new stuff maybe this year. Let's
Nice.
see.
You said what you make salsa. Do you have any other like recipes or stuff that you make?
Well, not specifically from the garden, but I really want to make my own spaghetti sauce from my garden. That is our goal this year, actually, because Tony is like super Italian, so I'm always like, all right, gotta find this Italian recipe. But yeah, I would like to get everything, like all the spices and everything, to make like the sauce exactly how it wanted.
Nice.
Yeah.
Joshua, you
I
mentioned.
love cooking. So.
Joshua, you mentioned that you're thinking about doing a garden. Do you do your garden every year, or?
Yeah. Quick question. How is my video coming up for you?
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like before.
Oh, yeah. My screen is showing a totally different story. All right, I'll trust you. Yeah. So that's why I was kind of playing around with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually I'll try to garden every year. This year, we're living in the city, so we don't have a lot of room to grow food per se. So we're gonna focus more on like herbs, medicinal herbs, flowers. Nothing too demanding. Although we do have access to a lot of land, so we might actually expand a little bit and start growing food items, and maybe even like what's the word? Start an apiary. We know people who keep bees and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of really interesting opportunities this year, and now is like the perfect time to really dive into gardening and sustainable living. So I'm jumping right in. I have a list of all these things I want to grow. Yeah, so cheers to that. I think we're all on
that's
the same
fun.
page.
Yeah.
Nice. So before we wrap it up, Joshua, is there any final words that anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I'd just like to recap and say that it seems to me that the most potential for energy, where power and energy and profit, if you want to call it profit, in a monetary way, but really the core of it is energy and power comes from the difference between two polarities, and it seems like really what counterculture and everything that's out of the mainstream counterculture is, there's like huge potential for profit and growth and more power and energy and expansion in that difference, because it's in the subconscious. So everyone associated with that is just looking for that rallying point, so to speak. The expos, the businesses that are promoting that, and everyone who feels connected to that is, there's just huge, there's like a tidal wave of potential. And I think that like what you're doing, like what we're doing actually, is just riding that wave and like bringing that to the forefront and speaking it, and yeah, and bringing it to mainstream culture and connecting all those dots and making the center point for that.
Yeah, I feel like it allows individuals to almost feel normal, you know? Like, it just, because no one really knows where their interests spawn from, you know? It's like, oh, what got me into making skulls, you know? Like, so it's great to see that we as a community can come together and support and like cultivate that in individuals, to allow them to explore, you know, their interests that maybe they have to hide from those around them. So I think
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and
I love to see it.
Yeah, and I think the expos are just an ideal place to go and just explore with an open mind and see what, you know, the rest of the world has to offer individuals. Michelle,
Yeah,
is
I love that.
Michelle, is there anything you want to talk about, or maybe something we didn't mention, or just some ending words?
Yeah, I mean, not really. I feel like we had a great conversation. It was really nice to see two people that I don't see and, be social for a second because
Yeah.
it's just so rare right now. But yeah, I really appreciate like the support that you show, for our show and, inviting me to talk to you and all that. It's been great. So I'm really, really happy and I'm really happy to have you involved in our show and just keep it going, see where we can end up, I guess.
Yeah. Where can the audience learn more about you, the expos, and what you're doing?
Yeah, everything you could possibly want to know is just on our website, which is odditiesandcuriositiesexpo.com. And then same for our social media, it's just Oddities and Curiosities Expo.
Great. All right, Michelle. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you do in allowing individuals to really explore themselves and their interests. For that, we thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the Death Science Podcast. For updates and new episodes, subscribe right now. It's quick to deathscience.org. Remember that we all must die one day. So talk to your loved ones now about your post-life plans for your body. Learn more about creative and beneficial post-life plans at restinggrounds.org. I'm Jeremy signing off. Thank you and memento mori.